Inference questions. The TOEFL listening section contains 7 different question types. These are detail, main idea, inference, organization, attitude, function, categorizing. Today, we are focusing in inference questions. Inference questions will usually look very similar to one of the next examples.
What can be inferred from the professor's discussion of X? What will the student probably do next? What is it implied when the speaker says this?
Sometimes, the question will replay a sentence from the recording for you. Other times, you will need to rely on your notes and memory to answer the question. Unfortunately, your notes may not always be much help, since you can't take notes on information that isn't there. So when you're answering inference questions, keep these pointers in mind. Never pick an answer that contradicts a main idea from the passage. As you're listening, pay attention to the speaker's tone. The correct answer will probably use some keywords not found in the recording. The implication is very similar to what's directly said. You do not need to make a large logical jump. That last point is the most important one. Even though we call these questions inference questions, they're very, very similar to detail questions. The information is in the recording. Never draw from your own thoughts or experiences if they are not also spoken about in the recording.
Let's look at a sample inference question from a literature lecture about detective novels, including a famous one called The Moonstone. First, here's an excerpt from the lecture.
In The Moonstone, as I said, Collins did much to establish the conventions of the detective genre. I'm not going to go into the plot at length, but, the basic setup is there's this diamond of great value, a country house. The diamond mysteriously disappears in the middle of the night. The local police are brought in an attempt to solve the crime, and they mess it up completely. And then the true hero of the book arrives. That's Sergeant Cuff. Now, Cuff, this extraordinarily important character, let me try to give you a sense of who Sergeant Cuff is by first describing the regular police. And this is the dynamic that you're going to see throughout the history of the detective novel, where you have the regular cops who are well-meaning but officious and bumblingly inept. And they are countered by a figure who's eccentric, analytical, brilliant, and able to solve the crime. So first, the regular police get called in to solve the mystery. In this case, Detective Superintendent Seagrave. When Superintendent Seagrave comes in, he orders his minions around. They bumble and they actually make a mess of the investigation, which you'll see repeated. You'll see this pattern repeated, particularly in the Sherlock Holmes stories of a few years later, where Inspector Lestrade, this well-meaning idiot, is always countered by Sherlock Holmes, who's a genius.
Now let's look at the question.
What does the professor imply when he says this?
Well, let me try to give you a sense of who Sergeant Cuff is by first describing the regular police.
We can see that this is an inference question because it uses the word imply and asks the listener to understand the meaning of something that is not directly stated by the professor. When the professor says this,
well, let me try to give you a sense of who Sergeant Cuff is by first describing the regular police.
He is hinting that there is a difference between the behavior of the regular police and that of Sergeant Cuff. This contrast is supported in other parts of the passage. For example, the speaker describes the regular police as bumblingly inept. He also says it is common in detective novels for them to be countered by a specific character, in this case, Sergeant Cuff, who is brilliant. Taken together, we can see that the best answer is A. Sergeant Cuff is unlike the regular police in the Moonstone.